You know that feeling, right, when you're trying to make sense of social media marketing?
Oh, yeah.
It's like wading through this swamp of guaranteed strategies and secret hacks. And you just end up feeling, I don't know, more lost than before you even started.
Totally. It feels that everyone's got the answer, but nothing seems to consistently work.
Exactly.
Well, that feeling, that information overload, all the conflicting advice, that's exactly what we're diving into today.
Yeah.
We're really focusing on how social media algorithms get, well, let's say, oversimplified in a lot of marketing talk.
Right.
Our goal isn't just another list of tactics that might work for 5 minutes. It's about unpacking the real complexities under the hood.
Good. Yeah, we look at a bunch of sources, didn't we? Stuff exploring what these algorithms actually are, why people try to simplify them, which is understandable sometimes.
Sure.
But also the risks of doing that and some of those common myths that just keep cropping up.
Exactly. And by getting maybe a deeper handle on these pretty intricate systems, you listening right now, you'll be so much better placed.
How so?
Well, you can look at all that advice flying around more critically, right? Build strategies based on a more realistic picture, and ultimately just make smarter calls about where you put your effort, your resources. Think of this as maybe a shortcut to getting properly informed.
Okay, I like that. So our mission today is pretty straightforward then. We want to pull out the key insights from what we read.
Yep.
Cut through the jargon, hopefully.
Try to.
And just give you a clearer, more sort of nuanced view of these systems and how to actually navigate them.
Sounds good.
Okay, let's get into it. Starting with the algorithms themselves. Because, well, it turns out they're way more involved than those simple tips suggest.
Absolutely. That's a huge point in the sources. These algorithms, they're not just simple formulas. Not at all. They are seriously complex systems. They look at literally thousands of different signals to figure out what content you see and, crucially, in what order.
Thousands. Okay.
Wow. Yeah. It's not just a handful. Thousands. It really puts it in perspective.
It does. It makes those headlines like, 3 secrets to go viral seem, well, almost a bit silly, doesn't it?
Kind of, yeah. It shows just how much is really happening behind the curtain.
So it's not just the number of factors.
No. And that's the other thing. They're incredibly dynamic. These aren't fixed rules someone wrote down once.
Okay.
They learn, they adapt all the time through machine learning.
Right. ML.
Exactly. So the algorithm is basically teaching itself, getting smarter by looking at tons of data, tweaking its own rules automatically.
Without programmers having to constantly rewrite it.
Pretty much. It's refining how it works based on how all of us are actually using the platform second by second.
So the goalposts are always moving, essentially. What works today might not work next month or even next week.
Precisely. And here's another really critical piece. Personalization.
Ah, yes.
Every single user gets a unique feed. The algorithm builds it just for you, based on everything it knows about your past, clicks, likes, shares, everything.
So my feed looks totally different from yours.
Completely different. And that inherent personalization, that's a core reason why generic one-size-fits-all advice just often falls flat.
Because what the algorithm likes for my feed might be totally irrelevant for someone else's.
Exactly. What works for audience A might completely bomb with audience B.
Okay, so they're complex, constantly changing, personalized. No, that's a lot. But the sources did give some pointers, right? Like the main types of signals they look for.
Yes, definitely. They tend to fall into several main buckets. First up is engagement.
Okay, the obvious one. Likes, comments.
Yeah, likes, shares, comments, saves, but also how long you watch a video or even dwell on a post.
Watch time, right.
It signals to the algorithm, hey, people find this interesting or valuable.
Makes sense. If people are interacting, it's got their attention. What else?
Second, relationships. The algorithm looks at how strong the connection is between whoever created the content and the person seeing it.
So, close friends versus someone you barely know.
Exactly. Or brands you interact with a lot versus ones you ignore. Content from closer connections usually gets a bump.
Is it just being friends or following?
It's likely deeper than that. It probably looks at how often you interact, how you interact, do you comment, share their stuff, or just passively like. Those deeper interactions likely signal a stronger relationship.
Got it. That explains why I see more from my sister than from that random page I followed years ago.
Precisely. Then there's relevance.
Okay.
This is about keywords, hashtags, but also the topics the algorithm thinks you're interested in based on your past behavior.
Right. So you watch one video on baking sourdough.
And suddenly your feed is full of starter tips and scoring techniques.
Yeah.
The algorithm learns something about you.
Okay. And the last one.
Recency. How new the content is. Generally, newer stuff gets a bit of a boost. Yeah, its importance can vary a bit by platform, maybe by content type too, but freshness usually helps, at least initially.
Okay, engagement, relationships, relevance, recency. That gives us a much better framework. And didn't one source use Facebook as a specific example of this complexity?
Yes, Facebook's feed, powered by machine learning, is a classic example. They use these really sophisticated AI prediction engines.
To guess what I want to see.
Essentially, yeah. The system makes billions, literally billions of predictions every second about what each user might find most valuable or engaging right now.
Billions per second. That's mind-boggling.
It really is. And their focus, they say, is on meaningful social interactions, MSI.
What does that mean in practice?
They try to prioritize content that actually sparks conversations, that gets people talking to each other, strengthening connections rather than just, passive scrolling or clicking like.
So that's why sometimes an older post pops up if there's suddenly a lot of new comments on it.
Exactly. The algorithm figures, hey, there's a conversation happening here, you might want to join.
Interesting.
And another key point, these algorithms aren't just about immediate clicks. Increasingly, the platforms are trying to optimize for long-term user satisfaction. They want you to feel like you got value, so you keep coming back tomorrow.
Right, retention. So those quick, maybe shady tricks might give a tiny short-term boost.
But they could actually backfire in the long run if they annoy users or go against what the platform is trying to achieve overall.
That's a really crucial insight. Okay, so given all this complexity, it begs the question, why is so much marketing advice so simplistic?
Yeah, it's a great question. The sources offered a few reasons.
I bet. One thing that jumped out at me was just, basic human psychology. Our brains kind of struggle with these massively complex systems, right? Thousands of variables all interacting.
Absolutely. It's hard to wrap your head around. Simple rules of thumb are just easier, more digestible.
Definitely.
And then there's the demand side. Clients often want simple, actionable advice. They need clear instructions their teams can actually implement without needing, a PhD in data science.
Just tell me what to do. Yeah, I get that. Post at 3:55 p.m. on Tuesdays. Feels concrete.
Exactly. It feels like you're doing something. Plus, the marketing world, it can be high pressure. There's often this push for quick results.
Right.
Nuanced long-term strategies. They take more explanation, maybe more patience. They can be a harder sell when people expect instant wins.
And let's face it, the platforms themselves aren't exactly handing out the blueprints, are they? These algorithms are often black boxes.
That's a huge factor. The lack of transparency from the platforms definitely leaves room for speculation, for people to try and fill in the gaps with, simplified guesses.
Which might be wrong.
Which might be quite wrong. And that leads us to the risks. Relying on this oversimplified advice isn't just neutral. It can actually hurt.
Okay, how? What are the actual downsides?
Well, a big one is just ineffective targeting. Generic advice ignores the huge differences between audiences, between platforms. What works for Gen Z on TikTok is probably not going to land the same way with, say, Woomers on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
You end up creating stuff that just misses the mark for the people you actually want to reach.
So wasted effort, basically. Putting energy into content that doesn't connect.
Precisely.
Mm.
And that waste often translates directly into wasted ad spend.
Ouch.
If your campaigns are based on flawed assumptions or outdated best practices, you're effectively just burning money on clicks or impressions that don't lead anywhere meaningful.
And given how fast things change, those best practices could be ancient history really quickly, couldn't they? Like using last year's map.
Exactly. What was supposedly gospel 6 months ago might be totally useless today. Or worse, it might even get you penalized if the algorithm's priorities have shifted.
Okay, this brings us to debunking some of those common myths. The sources actually called out a few specific ones, right?
They did. Let's tackle the big one. Video content always performs best. You hear that everywhere.
Oh, yeah. Pivot to video.
Right. But the sources say, hold on, it really depends. Engagement preferences vary hugely by audience segment, by platform.
So video can be great, but
sometimes, for certain audiences or certain messages, maybe well-written text or a really compelling image might actually be more effective. It's not a universal rule.
Okay, context matters. What about the post daily mantra? You got to post every single day.
Another one the sources challenged. They really stress that quality often trumps quantity.
So spamming your audience isn't the way.
Probably not. Flooding feeds with low-value stuff can lead to lower engagement overall, maybe even cause people to tune you out, audience fatigue.
Right.
For some brands, maybe posting less often, but making sure each post is really high value, really resonates, that could actually work better in the long run.
So it's about showing up with something worthwhile, not just showing up.
Couldn't have said it better. Okay, last myth for now. Ideal posting times are universal. Those charts that tell you the exact best minute to post.
Ah, yes. The magic posting window. 2:00 p.m. EST on a Tuesday, guaranteed.
Yeah, well, the sources basically say, probably not. Optimal timing is highly specific to your audience's habits. When are they actually online and paying attention?
Not when some generic chart says they should be.
Exactly. It depends entirely on your specific followers and their unique behavior patterns. A global rule just doesn't make sense.
So you need to figure out your own audience's rhythm.
You do. Which leads us into slightly more awkward territory highlighted in the sources.
Oh.
The whole issue of self-interest and, let's say, potentially biased reporting in the marketing world itself.
Ah, the look how amazing our results are phenomenon. The sources had some stats on this, didn't they? A mismatch.
A pretty big one, yeah. One figure mentioned was marketing agencies claiming success rates around, say, 73%.
Okay, so that's pretty good.
But then independent analysis looking at actual results, it found success rates closer to 28%.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
a huge gap. 73 versus 28.
It's a stark difference, and a likely reason. The sources point to widespread cherry-picking of data in case studies, meaning they highlight the wins, the good metrics, but maybe quietly ignore or downplay the parts of the campaign that didn't work so well. One source estimated something like 87% of case studies do this.
87%. So mostly highlight reels. We're not getting the full picture, the struggles, the failures.
Which makes it really hard to judge what truly works consistently. It paints an overly rosy picture.
Definitely makes it harder to learn.
Exactly. And that's why the sources suggest some really important questions that everyone, marketers, clients, anyone involved, should be asking to kind of cut through the hype.
Okay, this sounds super useful. What should we be asking?
First off, demand the full data. Don't just accept the headline metric.
Like, we got 10,000 likes.
Right. Ask for all the relevant numbers.
Yeah.
And crucially, ask about the methodology. How exactly did they measure that? What was the context? What else happened?
Got it. Transparency. Be skeptical of just the highlights. What else?
Insist on customization. If a strategy sounds like it could apply to anyone, push back. Ask, okay, how is this tailored specifically to my audience, my goals, my product? A generic one-size-fits-all plan, probably not optimized.
Makes sense. It needs to feel specific to us.
Totally. Also, check the recency. Ask, when was this advice or strategy developed?
Because things change so fast.
Exactly. Platforms evolve constantly. Advice from 6 months ago might be outdated. Ask if there have been any major platform updates since then.
Good point. And the last key question.
Test the assumptions. Don't just take someone's word for it, even if it sounds convincing.
How do you mean?
Set up small, controlled tests. A/B testing, for example. Try the tactic out on a small scale with your own audience before you roll it out big time. Verify the claims with your own data.
Right. Don't just believe. Test it yourself. Be scientific about it.
Precisely. Gather your own evidence.
Okay, so I've got this picture. Algorithms are super complex. Simplifying them too much is risky. We need to question the common wisdom. So what does a better approach actually look like? How do we navigate this complexity effectively?
Well, the sources suggest it's really about embracing that complexity, but doing it with integrity and a commitment to always be learning.
Okay. Where does that start?
It starts with deep research, really understanding your specific audience and the platforms they use. Where do they hang out online? What kind of content genuinely grabs them? How do they interact?
So less broad strokes, more fine-grained understanding of your people.
Absolutely. Then, like we just said, testing. Embrace experimentation.
Little bets.
Yeah. Run small tests. See what actually moves the needle for your audience. Treat it like a lab, always learning and refining.
Start small, measure, iterate. Got it.
Exactly. And maybe the biggest thing, adaptability. You have to cultivate a mindset where you expect change.
Because the algorithms will keep changing.
They absolutely will. So your strategies have to evolve too. It means constantly analyzing performance, seeing what's working now, and being ready to adjust. It's never set it and forget it.
It's an ongoing process, not a finished product.
Precisely. And finally, look at all the data, not just the vanity metrics that make you feel good. Yeah, look at what's not working. Try to figure out why. Be honest with yourself based on the complete picture, the good and the bad.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. Key takeaways seem to be algorithms. Super sophisticated, thousands of factors, always learning.
Yep.
Oversimplification, risky. Leads to ineffective marketing, wasted money.
Definitely.
We need to question those generic best practices. Instead, focus on deep audience research for your specific context.
Crucial.
Continuous testing and adaptation, because things always change.
Non-negotiable.
And analyzing all the data honestly to see what's truly working.
That sums it up really well. And by embracing that more, let's say, nuanced view, you, our listener, you're just going to be in a much stronger position.
To do what?
To build strategies that actually work, that are based on reality, not hype. To avoid throwing resources down the drain on simplistic advice that just doesn't hold up. Understanding the complexity really is the key.
It empowers you to make smarter choices.
Exactly.
Okay, so here's a final thought to leave you with, something to chew on. Given how fast social media evolves and how deeply personalized these algorithms are, how do we move beyond just chasing the latest best practice or hack? How can we instead build like a sustainable framework for continuous learning and adaptation, one that truly serves our unique audiences and helps us reach our specific goals, not just copy what someone else claims worked for them?